Good evening. Welcome to the October 15th, 2024 meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. And we will start this meeting like we like to start all of our meetings with a poetry reading from our Carrboro Poet Laureate, Liza Wolfe Francis. Liza, welcome. And don't forget to, well, you won't, West End Poetry Fight.
I'm going to start with that.
Just
Good
start
evening.
with it. She got it.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, this weekend coming up, Thursday, Friday nights, and all Saturday, we've got the West End Poetry Festival. You might have seen the Slow Down for Poetry sign out there. That's our theme this year, to slow down for poetry, and we're really excited. We've got all kinds of events. The town has a website. If you look up West End Poetry Festival, you will see the whole schedule, and there's all kinds of things to write poetry, to listen to poetry, to, be able to share your poetry at an open mic on Thursday night. There's lots of fun stuff. The mayor will give an opening remark on Saturday afternoon at 1. So please come by. It's free and open to everyone. So yes, whether you're a poet or not, we would love to see you. It's very fun. So I wrote this poem recently. It's a newer poem, and it's for the survivors of Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina, and for all the people who have relatives, family, friends, loved ones in Western North Carolina, and, just thinking of all of them and everyone who's really been trying to support from afar. In the Temple of Helene in Western North Carolina, I can only imagine the rising water, a sound of surrender, the urge for survival from the coming devourer. Force behind a river, a storm, mountains, the rain when it gathers and overtakes all there is, and the creep of no escape. Out the window, water comes in a known way, unknown this time, twisted into a new force, a new original sin. Houses mowed down by flood, water carrying dumpsters, buses, overturning trucks, trailers, a sweeping away Noah wouldn't have survived. And afterward, only a few animals call to each other as mudwater recedes, leaving streets caked and broken, foodless people left with no water by the water that mangled them into a humility only a few people know yet. People left with no power, but not powerless still. Even through destruction like this, there are people who say there is no crisis, just a storm. But the death toll rises, some still missing, unreached. Humans, deer, hedgehogs, opossums, cardinals, dogs, family photos, a kitchen table passed down 3 generations, dishes from grandma. Those on the outside watch without knowing what it's really like to be in a place you love, destroyed, aching, hoping your community will rise, will continue, will bring it all back, will keep helping each other onward with hope. At the country store, at the town meeting, at the supply station, people count their neighbors, reunite with loved ones, hug anyone they can, drink water, cry about the news of the dead, and cry at the fact that they themselves survived and are still alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a really nice acknowledgement of what's happening still in the western part of our state, and just asking everyone to do what they can to support our neighbors to the west. I do have a couple of proclamations. I will start with the proclamation for the Minority Enterprise Development Week. Whereas in 1983, the Minority Business Development Agency, an agency of the United States Department of Commerce, held the first Minority Enterprise Development Week. Since then, it has been observed annually by agencies and organizations at the federal, state, and local levels. And whereas Minority Enterprise Development Week, often referred to as MedWeek, serves to celebrate the accomplishments and achievements of minority-owned businesses and recognize individuals who have excelled as entrepreneurs and business leaders. And whereas, according to the Census Bureau, Carrboro is home to at least 55 minority-owned businesses, providing jobs for more than 1,200 people. And whereas, Carrboro has commissioned a disparity study to assess, quantify, and evaluate the prevalence, significance, and scope of discrimination in its purchasing procedures and practices, if any, against minority and women-owned business enterprises. And whereas Carrboro's Economic Development Department has worked to promote minority-owned businesses through the BAG Business Accelerator Program, the development of the new Business Resource Center, BIPOC Business Pop-Up Program, and the Boost Carrboro Business Training Initiative. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim October 20th through October 26, 2024, to be Minority Enterprise Development Week in Carrboro. I encourage all residents to honor the achievements of minority business owners to consider purchasing goods and services from minority-owned businesses and to commit ourselves to creating a truly equitable economic system so all people can share equally in the promise of our community and our nation. This, the 15th day of October, 2024, and I don't believe we have anyone here for that. The second one is to recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by someone to maintain power and control in an intimate or family relationship. And whereas domestic violence encompasses not only physical abuse, but also emotional, verbal, financial, sexual, or digital abuse, isolation, and or stalking. And whereas domestic violence disproportionately impacts racial and ethnic minorities, undocumented people, women, trans, and gender non-conforming people, and disabled people. And whereas racism, sexism, xenophobia, transphobia, ableism, and other forms of oppression and discrimination perpetuate domestic violence and make seeking safety and stability more difficult for marginalized survivors. And whereas at least 2 Orange County residents have been murdered so far this year by a current or former intimate partner or family member. And whereas Compass Center, the state-designated domestic violence service provider for Orange County, serves more than 1,300 survivors of domestic violence each year through its 24-hour domestic violence crisis line, support groups, court and community advocacy, Latinx programs, career and financial counseling, and other services, and engages thousands more in prevention, education, and outreach. And now, therefore, I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim October 2024 to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the town of Carrboro. I do encourage all residents to observe this time in ways appropriate to its importance and significance. This was issued on the first day of October 2024. And we are down to our town manager's update. Thank you, Town Manager Tony.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only announcement I have to make is that there will be another community input opportunity for the downtown area plan on Sunday, October 20th at the Art Center, which is located at 400 Robertson Street, and that'll be held between 2 and 4 o'clock p.m.
Thank you, Town Manager Tony. We are down to our public comment period. I do have folks signed up for the Green Tract, and we will accept your comments during the public hearing. And I also have Miss Lisa Brown about the, I'm going to assume advisory board?
Yes, ma'am.
Committees? Yeah, come on up, Miss Brown.
Hi, my name is Lisa Brown. I am a co-chair of the Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee with Dr. Jennifer Conrad of Keenan Flagler. We just wanted to read and just state a few concerns. As we understand, you all have been working very hard on your revision of the committees. But I feel like with pandemic and with change on the council and so forth, that it is just the right thing to read to you, real briefly, a statement about what we sent in April around our concerns of maintaining our committee, as well as just little tiny points inside the draft that staff has worked so hard on. To be clear, your staff has always answered our questions. They're very responsive, and we commend them. Thank you for your service. My name is Lisa Brown of the Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee. As I said, co-chair with Jennifer Conrad. At this time, our members include Ed Whitkin, who's here with me today, and Meg McGurk, and our oldest tenured person is Anahid Vrana. The Northern Transition Area on page 4 of 10, attachment B, shall be repealed upon your adoption of the redesign of the committees in the longer document. While we understand the purpose of the redesign Town Council and its staff have undertaken, we would like to state for the record some information and a few concerns. In April 2024, the Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee submitted the following statement to Council at the packet through your staff, our comments about the draft. And here I start. During the restructuring of the Planning Committee of Carrboro, the Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee will be listed as a subcommittee under the Planning Board. As this restructuring continues, the members of NTAAC would like to emphasize and reiterate the purpose and intent of the committee and its membership. The following quote is from the Orange County website. Even today, I double-checked it. The purpose of the Northern Transition Area. The committee will review zoning amendment requests, special conditional use permit applications for developments within the NTAA of Carrboro, make recommendations to the Carrboro Board of Adjustment or Carrboro Board of Aldermen, they did not change your name yet, inventory areas of cultural, archaeological, historical significance, areas of open space, rural character, scenic qualities, biological values, areas of agricultural uses, and make recommendations based on the above studies for additional policies, goals, etc., that will preserve and enhance the special character of this area and relate to its growth. The committee will consist of 5 members, 3 appointed by the Orange County Board of BOCC and 2 by the Carrboro Board of Aldermen. All members shall be residents of the NTA. Statement by our present statement in April, and I conferred with my group.
Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Is it over? Oh,
You go
sorry.
ahead.
Okay. The NTAAC proposes to maintain the current 5 seats with representatives living in the NTA. The subcommittee should meet separately and manage its affairs as it has done throughout its history. A member of town staff and liaison to the Town Council of Carrboro should continue to participate as in the past. It is important to note the NTAAC differs sharply from other elements of Carrboro. Government structure. Specifically, this subcommittee is comprised of people who live, lease, or own property in the town jurisdiction, but we do not have voting rights in Carrboro. We vote for Orange. We cannot vote for Carrboro. That's not in the statement. I just am adding emphasis. We cannot vote for Carrboro town elections. As a consequence, the subcommittee is the only representation that individuals living in the NTA have in the process of government for Carrboro. Given this distinction, we believe there should be no change in representation or membership in the subcommittee at this time. That was written in April. To be clear, we have worked with staff in the most recent past to try to address some of our concerns. And again, incredibly graceful, incredibly wonderful people you have working with you. Town staff addressed our concerns about being a subcommittee under planning with regard to attendance, because the way the attendance is written, we would be attending all the planning, which some of us can do and some of us cannot. But they addressed it, and then they did so on attachment B, page 3 of 10, item B, little b3. The other concern we have on planning is that this statement, this is page 3 of 10, small item b, members of such advisory committees shall sit as non-voting members of the planning board. When issues are being considered, shall lend their talents, energies, and expertise to planning board. However, all formal recommendation to the town council shall be made by planning board. We totally appreciate leadership. We totally understand in our different walks of life that it is important to distill information and present it to you all in the most efficient, professional manner. However, we have concerns about the word non-voting members, primarily because we can't vote anywhere in Carrboro. And I'm saying that again. We can attend town meetings, we can appear in front of you, we can email all of you all, but we have a voice, but we don't have a vote. The only other thing I would like to say, and I think it's your poet laureates, when I hear your poet laureates speak about all the things, I continually think about the Carrboro Connects document. You have chapters titled Climate Action, Stormwater, Parks and Rec, all relate to the Northern Transition Area. Northern Transition Area has carbon capture. We have more trees than people. We have animals and creatures, great and small. We have watershed. We have the headwaters of creeks that flow into the creeks and rivers of North Carolina. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think in this day and age, the consideration and preservation, and also this election voting year, it is a very tangible concern. So thank you. I appreciate your service, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And I do stand corrected. Our public hearing is about just what you said. It is a legislative public hearing on the land use ordinance text amendments relating to advisory board and commission consolidation and attendance, but you gave your comment now, which is fine. The green track item, of course, is part of our general agenda and is not a public hearing, so we will hear from those that want to speak on the green track now, and I will call you in the order that you are signed up. Mr. William Madden, what are you, William Madden?
General comments?
Okay, well, you go ahead. It's not the green track?
No.
Okay.
Am I controlling this?
Mr. Joyner, the town clerk.
I got it. You just go ahead and give me comments.
I'd like to drive.
It's
I
no-
want to show you something.
There's no driving.
I can't show you the internet?
No.
Bummer. Okay. It's been quite a while since I've been here. You want to start 3 minutes? Thanks. So last time I was here, the room was arranged differently, and you could come up and pull up the internet to show the town council. And the reason I wanted to do that is because sadly I heard that the recyclery is losing its lease. It is in the culturally Carrboro section of West Chapel Hill, and I'd like to see Carrboro get it back. It's had a long history of serving the public. It's a nonprofit, so they got problems raising money to pay for their lease. Okay, but it's a real jewel. Keep it. Bring it back to Carrboro. Now, what I was going to show you on the internet is that we got land. You know, we got land over by Wilson Park. We got land over by the on Fidelity Street, at where the cemetery is, and just along there, there's a swath of trees where Google apparently has a utility building. Over at Wilson Park, at the far end of the parking lot, there's a cookout grill, kind of a small cookout grill, and there's a swath of trees that could easily be made to house a building for the recyclery if you give them a 99-year lease for $1 a year. But I wanted to come back here and talk about perhaps funding for that. Now, that's always the biggest hurdle for government, local government. And people who know me, and by the way, I should have said this earlier, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else, or as one might say, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation or any other government office, okay? So just know that I'm speaking for myself. And, but I might be able to find you tens of thousands of dollars for such a thing. And I'm going to want this to bring in a lot of the bicyclists from Carrboro before I tell you where the money is. But I want you to start thinking about how much would you be willing to spend to keep the recyclery? How many tens of thousands of dollars to build them a small little building where they can serve the community? And they serve every segment of the community involved in bicycles. Doesn't matter about race, gender, sexual orientation. They help out everybody. And I want you to think about that. I'm going to come back and tell you where you can find the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. We appreciate it. Miss Jenny Quisenberry? And correct me if it's not Quisenberry. Welcome,
Yeah, hi, Jenny Quessenberry.
Quisenberry. Thank you.
So I'm here about the Green Tract project. So I live in Phoenix Place, which is the community that will be affected the most by the Green Tract. At least I think it will be affected the most. I'm on the HOA committee, and I'm not really speaking for the whole HOA. I'll report back to them. I've attended a lot of the community stakeholder meetings, so I'm fairly familiar with all the different details with the Green Tract. Currently, there's some confusion on whether or not the county, the DOT owns the 3 roads that make up my community, Phoenix Drive, Lizzie Lane, and Edgar Street. And so one of the concerns is whether or not first construction vehicles would come through our neighborhood or only Purefoy Road. And then, of course, once the project is built, will there be a lot more people coming through our streets? So one of the concerns is entries and exits, different roads for the Green Tract. Another concern is the tree buffer. I would like to see a large buffer of trees behind my neighbors' houses, because I live across the street on Phoenix Place and my house faces the Green Tract. So the row of houses, my neighbors, they're going to be backed up against new people, which in some people's minds, that's a totally fine thing. But for me and a lot of my neighbors, we would love to see a huge buffer of trees along the entirety of Phoenix Place, Phoenix Drive. Third, I know that this project is entering the financial analysis phase, and that would mean that some things can be changed, shifted, maybe not quite as many houses and apartments would be built and therefore leave more trees, things like that. But we also want to know, how is this going to affect our property tax values and, how much we have to pay. So we want to be a part of that conversation. So please don't sign off on any plans unless we are part of those decisions. So that's all I really needed to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We appreciate those comments. Elizabeth Young, do you want to come up, Elizabeth?
I can come up at the end.
Come on now, if you don't mind. Thank you.
It's short. I'm Elizabeth Young, and I am a member of the Church of the Advocate on Homestead. And we are at one end of the Green Tract, and then the other end is the Riders Road Committee, and we are have a close relationship and volunteer. And we at the church really support the master plan and would hope that y'all will affirm that today. And And really, in the community, the people that we see, everyone really, there's been a lot of community involvement in this decision-making, and everyone is mostly really supportive of this because there was a lot of input gathered from all the community members in the 3 workshops about the priorities and visions and the goal for the master plan. So this is the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Minister Robert Campbell? Bless you.
I want to thank each and every one of you that represent the town of Carrboro for the great decision of coming up with the consultants and the community engagement, where all things led to the discussion of the green tract. And everything was done to reach out and engage everyone. And because those voices came to the table, even though there were differences, the voices that spoke up and the voices that was engaged and those that came out to the different workshops helped forge an image of what community engagement should look like for the future and what development should look like to bring a vision to become a reality that would not only just benefit the Rogers Eubanks Homestead community, but it gives a template for how other communities can engage in community engagement because they have a roadmap of what it looked like. Just imagine the outcome of the development on the green tract and how it will benefit those who live and those who work, but basically those who have to drive anywhere from an hour and a half just to get to work, that they can live in the area where they work. And I think this is the opportunity, once this become a development that would benefit, but is going to enhance Orange County and all of your township. A gift that came out of true community engagement. I want to thank the consultants that was involved in this, and I want to thank them and all those that was involved in pushing this forward. We have a great template. Let us continue to share that and bring forth changes that benefit the whole community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Minister Campbell. Mr. David Caldwell.
How's everybody? Great to see you guys again. It's been a long time. Name's David Caldwell. I'm a lifelong member of the Rogers Road community. I want to thank you all for everything that you did to help us get where we're at today. Our consultants that we worked with, we both learned a lot. A lot of people under the conception that this is done for Rogers Road. The only thing we were really involved in is preserving our history. Too many times we come in and put in a new building, but we don't talk about what was there before that building got there. And we just wanted the people coming through to be able to see it and know this community's been there since the 1700s. The other thing was, which was the cherry on the cake, is that we got to help in the designing of everything that's going in, which was for everybody. Disabled veterans, handicapped, seniors, and setting things up where it could be done to benefit them, young entrepreneurs. All these buildings, everything was put in to go there. And we had some say-so in that. We made it fluid, so it goes through and very inclusive, trying not to, you can't please everybody, but you should not please, well, you can't please everybody, but you know, you gotta please somebody. And we went on that presumption. Again, thank the guys on the designers and everything that they brought to the table for us. We learned a lot. For you all, I'm sure this is going to come up again, where you're going to go into a community to design something, and you're going to have to tear something down. But will you be able to look at that building or whatever's in that community and say, do you remember what was there? And let's tell you what it was. We have a very rich history in Chapel Hill, Carrboro, and Orange County, and we're gradually losing it. And I think this is the first step that we designed, and with the progress, we preserved the history. And it was great. It was just great working with it. And thank you all again.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. That is all the people that I have signed up for a public comment this evening. Is there anyone else? All right, thank you. We're going to move right into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are a part of normal town business. Council members are able to request to pull an item, but all other items not removed from the consent agenda will be adopted by a single motion. Is there a motion for consent agenda items? I see Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. I think she is going to pull number 4.
Actually, I just want to make a comment. I don't need to I don't have to pull it, but I'd like to
Can
pull
we-
it before we vote on it.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll move the consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem now has put a motion on the floor to move consent agenda items 1 through 4. Is there a second?
Well, I was actually, Madam Mayor, I was going to actually pull number 4 for note.
So you're going to
Yeah.
pull it?
Yes.
So 1 through 3?
1 through 3.
Now
Mayor
second
Pro
that.
Tem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second for items
Second.
1. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, and then Councilmember Posada.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank folks who worked on the naming committee. I understand the process. I actually had a discussion with Manager Tony, who was very helpful to understand the full process. And I do want to say I might be the only one in the room. I voted for Mayor Drakeford twice in 1979 and 81. So I'm delighted that we have the opportunity to honor his work and his contributions. I also want to say that it is my hope that the library will perpetuate, and the building named as a Drakeford Library Complex will uphold and perpetuate the words of Dr. Carla Hayden, our Librarian of Congress, who said that a library is the cornerstone of democracy, and that hopefully within our community we will think of the Drakeford Library Complex as the democracy complex. So I just wanted to underscore that, given that we live at a time where books are banned, books are purged, books are eliminated from libraries at an unprecedented rate, and that Carrboro and the county are building a library in Carrboro at a time when libraries are under such pressure. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for those comments, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. Councilmember Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I can get into my comments on the resolution first, but I just had a quick question for staff. It's my understanding, Mayor Tony, that after we name it, there will be a process to put in a plaque, put in recognition. So I just wanted to make sure that that's already part of the plan and I don't have to add it to the resolution, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. With that, I want to thank both my colleague, Councilmember Frey, as well as the commissioners and everyone who was part of the team and the staff who worked diligently to get us all in one place. I know it was not the easiest thing at times, so thank you for your work on that. And I am honored to move for the passage of the resolution.
Seconded.
It's been moved and properly seconded for consent agenda item number 4. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. We are at the public hearing. Town Manager Tony for the introduction of the item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a need for a public hearing. This will be a legislative public hearing on a land use ordinance text amendment relating to advisory board and commission consolidation and attendance and associated town code amendments. Tina Moon, our planning and transportation administrator, will lead this item.
And while Ms. Moon is getting this presentation together, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and then we will hear from her.
Okay, sorry about that small,
That's okay.
that small delay. So good evening, Mayor, members of the Town Council. Again, thank you for the introduction. I'm Tina Moon with the Planning Department. As noted, this is a legislative public hearing related to text amendments to the land use ordinance and related amendments to the town code. The matter has to do with advisory boards and commissions, consolidation and attendance. Since you've received this in your packet, I won't go over this slide in detail other than a quick reminder of our legislative process. We'll go through these steps, and then at the end, I'll return to the podium to walk through the steps toward consideration of action. In terms of a quick overview, many of you have been on the council long enough to recall the beginning of this process. This has now involved, I think, 3 town clerks. Wesley Barger, beginning with discussions about attendance, which occurred in April and May of 2023, went to public hearing. That did involve a step going to the advisory boards, following with Wendy Welsh, who presented some ideas about consolidation. That likewise went to the advisory boards for their discussion, as noted this evening. I think most of you know by now, but if not, a quick refresher. Regulations associated with our advisory boards and commissions are housed in 2 locations. Chapter 3 of the Town Code, which is referred to as administration, and then Chapter 15 of the Town Code, which is technically the land use ordinance, and that's in the administrative mechanisms article. And as you know, again, some of these mergers have already occurred. The purpose tonight is really to focus on most of the remaining advisory boards, trying to get those kind of in one place, mainly those boards that have to do with have a role in the development review process that the planning department helps staff. And then also to review the attendance policy for all of the remaining advisory boards. So that will be our focus this evening. Quick key dates, we've already hit on this, so I'll just move along unless there's something you want to refer to. And then I've tried to talk through the ordinance in 2 slides to kind of hit the highlights at a glance. We have more detailed slides at the end if you want to have that kind of a deeper conversation. So as you may recall, the main focus here was to consolidate advisory boards that have similar charges. So the planning board would now, should you approve these amendments, would include the duties currently associated with the Appearance Commission and the Northern Transition Area Advisory Commission would change from a standalone advisory commission to a subcommittee of the planning board. And as part of that, that would mean that they would no longer report directly to the town council, but rather would report, again, as a subcommittee to the planning board. Their focus would remain the same. The Transportation Mobility Greenways Advisory Commission, this is a little bit of a mouthful, but this would include consolidating the current duties of the TAB, the Transportation Advisory Board, the Greenways Commission, and retaining the Safe Routes to School Commission, which is currently a subcommittee of the TAB. This, the way the slide is written, it is to be clear that what would occur in the land use ordinance is that the current provisions related to the Appearance Commission would be repealed, and this new transportation-related board would be written in their place. Similarly, the current Climate Action Team and the Environmental Advisory Board would be combined into one advisory board, picking up the duties of both that both boards currently have now. So the emphasis on involvement with the Climate Action Plan and outreach that is currently part of the CAT would be folded into the development review elements of the EAB. The reference to the Board of Adjustment is just related to the attendance provisions. And I just want, before we move forward, to point out the comments from the advisory boards, great comments. We went back and made the recommendations that they made. The TAB requested that the two provisions that had to do with the joint meetings with the Parks and Recreation Commission and the SWAC, or the Environmental Advisory Board, match in language, so we've made that change. We went back and added a little bit of clarification related to attendance for what had been the Northern Transition Area, so that was clear. We made another minor addition to more closely match the attendance provisions in the land use ordinance to what was in the town code. So there's a couple of changes from the request to set. Other changes to the land use ordinance just had to do with updating the names of these commissions and the provisions of the land use ordinance relating to the development review process, permits, ordinance amendments, et cetera. And to be clear that the duties that are currently part of the Appearance Commission related to neighborhood and historic preservation, that those would be carried on to the planning board. This is important because should they tackle, say, review of certificate of appropriateness, that would be a quasi-judicial proceeding. So we wanted to be clear that that language was in place. And again, for the town code amendment, this was related mainly to the attendance and member removal proceedings. So, quick reminder for a legislative matter, there's a consistency statement for amendments to land use ordinance. We've included some provisions for the comprehensive plan where that consistency seems to be met, as well as a reference to the authority in the land use ordinance for advisory boards. A consistency statement is not needed for town code amendments. And then from here, I'll pause. This is a quick reminder of the procedural notes. And there's an opportunity for public comment. And then I'll come back to walk through your decision if you're ready to make it.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. Are there any members of the public other than Ms. Brown who would like to come up at this time and give public comment about this matter? Okay, it does not look like it. Council members, are there any questions, which I'm sure there are? And I see Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Madam Mayor?
Do you need Tina to come up?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, come on up, Ms.
Madam Mayor,
Moon.
I will as well.
Okay. Councilmember Frey.
Tina, would you go put this slide up that has the draft LUO?
You mean the summary?
She's talking.
This one I didn't show with the supplemental, which is a very small font.
Well, we can start here. This is fine. So, my first question has to do with the NTAC and, concerns for representation. And for that reason, I feel that the NTAC is unique. I think it's important that the NTAC report to the council, since we are the elected body. And so I would support what NTAC has, with the recommendation they made in April. I think it's really important that we uplift the importance of having representation in the best way that we can under the circumstances that they are in the, joint planning area. And I think that also speaks to supporting the fact that the representation from the county, the numbers, the membership numbers remain as they are. So my question is, how complex would it be were it to stay as a singularity? NTAC.
Sure. The writing of the ordinance isn't complex at all. I think there'd be a question if we would have to bring this back, and I'll look to the attorney for that.
Well, if all that's being proposed is that the NTAC not be a subcommittee, that strikes me as being not being major enough to bring this entirely back. Okay. I think it could be amended if included in a motion by the council.
Now, you're saying still a subcommittee, but just report to the council.
No,
Well-
she means it stays standalone.
I think I am saying it really needs to stand alone. And quite frankly, I think, I'm always in favor of reading the pulse and to see how it goes. But I think shifting it and then realizing it's failing is not going to be as important as letting it stand alone and see how it works. Especially because land use ordinances, we're looking at, redeveloping the LUO. So I would make the motion to keep it as it is and not consolidate it at this time.
Okay.
Is there a second for that motion? No second for the motion? So the motion dies. Any other questions, Councilmember Haven?
Yes.
O'Donnell, right now? Go right
So
ahead.
my next question has to do with, and if you would go to the slide on, that shows the consolidation of the Climate Action Team and the Environmental Advisory Board. Okay, so currently in the duties of the Climate Action Team, number 3 is actively participate in the design and implementation of community outreach events, at least one outreach event a calendar year. Members will educate and engage Carrboro residents in town climate action initiatives, and the way that has been translated for the proposed CEAC is to participate in the design, organization, and implementation of community outreach events and attend events. Now, I understand the attend events does make it easier for the members rather than assigning that they have to attend at least one. That makes absolute sense. But I also think that the word action is lost. And I'm concerned because we have a very active community in terms of climate and environmental initiatives. And so, I really would like to see the last line in the initial charge, which is members will educate and engage Carrboro citizens in town climate action initiatives, be included. I think that's really important to move our community climate action plan forward. And it says that we honor the work that folks are doing. We want them to continue to do it, and we're going to be working together to do so. So I would like to have that added to the proposal. And that's a motion to add that.
Mr. Joyner, could you run that back? Or did you get it?
I don't have it.
That's okay. Could you,
It's the last,
what are you adding?
the last line of number 3 on the initial current duties.
And engage Carrboro residents.
Right. Members will educate and engage Carrboro residents in town climate action initiatives.
So add that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's the action part.
As a standalone number in the proposed, is that what?
I would add it to where it originally was, which is probably under participant number 5.
Okay,
Over here.
Okay.
Yep,
thank you.
Add it
Right.
to number 5.
right,
And that's a motion?
yeah.
Is there a second for that motion? Members will educate and engage Carrboro residents in town climate action initiatives. It would be added under proposed CEAC, attaching itself to number 5. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, not a second, but may I ask a question?
The motion is still on the floor.
Thank you. Tina, I don't know if you can tell me, how many members does the climate action team currently have?
They may have 11 or 13, 12? Oh, you mean how many?
Seated
current-
members.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought you meant the total. Yeah, I think they currently have 2 active members.
Okay. Do we have any information on the last time that the climate action team participated in an outreach event of this kind, or any information about sort of that part of the existing charge?
Sure. I'm not the best person to answer this question, but my understanding is that there has been more involvement in the development and the review of the climate action plan than participation in the events. Is that?
Okay, thank you. That answers my question for the moment, Tina.
Still a motion on the floor. All right, the motion dies. Any questions? Any other questions? Councilmember Frey.
Tina, I have a couple of questions. I'm not as familiar with the state law on the Historical Commission. And I saw that there has been an addition, let me get back to my page here, one moment. Right at the top of the draft ordinance, section 15-21 has got a new subsection F, and there's a second paragraph, a second sentence there saying, Town Council shall seek to appoint at least one person who lives in a neighborhood preservation district, one person who lives in a historic preservation district, and 3 persons who have demonstrated special interest, experience, or education in history, architecture, or related fields as required.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Frey. Could I get a motion to excuse Councilmember Haven O'Donnell for the remainder of the meeting? She's going to have to leave.
Yep.
So moved.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So,
I think that we can talk about the substance of our decisions here. I think this is an appropriate outcome. I can understand being unhappy with the outcome. But parliamentarily speaking, if we need to further discuss the lack of seconds to Councilmember Haven O'Donnell's motions, I think that is not inappropriate. I'm happy to talk about my position on the Northern Transition Area or the climate action language, which I've spoken to Councilmember Haven O'Donnell about my desire to see those goals carried through. I just don't think that language in this clause is particularly crucial to that work, and sort of personally speaking, favor a more streamlined approach to the agenda item than to add to it, like while we're continuing to work on ways to organize and mobilize council members, citizens into the work that had been done by the climate action team. I mean, all to say, it seems like, frankly, sort of a gross breach of our standard operating procedure to leave under these circumstances.
I'm not clear why Councilmember Haven O'Donnell is leaving, and if it is her desire to do so, the motion is on the floor, it's been seconded, then, she is excused.
Yeah.
Because that is what is happening right now.
The time for deliberation was before a vote. And I'm
Okay,
just going to say, all I asked is to add one line based on what folks in the climate action team have asked for and advocated for, which is to be able to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. You are excused.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Frey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tina, I apologize. So just to pick up that subparagraph F, it looks like some of that is required by state law. Could you help orient me to what is happening as we are folding the functions of a historical commission into the planning board?
Yeah, so that language is part of the Appearance Commission, and their duties as a historic preservation, a historic district commission.
Thank you.
To date, we have not had a local historic district nominated or, adopted. And that was why staff chose to use the language seek, meaning that as the planning board takes on the duties of appearance, it makes sense to strive to have someone with that background on the Appearance Commission. In this case, since there isn't a local historic district, it would be of benefit, but isn't necessarily required. Should the time come in the future when the town does have a historic district, you would probably want to revisit this, and when you do those appointments, try to get someone who meets that criteria.
Thank you very much, Tina, for that. I have one other question, and it relates to how the terms are handled. One of the issues that I'd observed that the advisory boards were struggling with was the fact that different boards had different, shall we say, timing about the year, and that if a position became open, there were sometimes waits of months for applicants to hear back because we were waiting to sort of come around to the appropriate time in the calendar. I can't tell clearly. I can see that you've talked about staggered terms in the draft, but could you elaborate a little bit more on how you addressed that issue?
I think there's 2 points to that. Some of this, if you do a deep dive, is dated, and it really could have been removed with this shot. Since we're in the process of updating the ordinance, it seemed cleaner to just keep it as consistent as it is, possible now, because it's a little bit confusing with the moving around. And so that was the reason why there's some of that dated language that remains here. That will be cleaned up in the months ahead. This document doesn't speak so much as to when the council chooses to appoint people. I did try to make the language more consistent in terms of when you would do officer elections. So that should now, for the most part, be February for all the boards. But the other questions as to when the council chooses to appoint, I think that is a matter between the clerk and the council.
Thank you very much, Tina. Just to speak for a moment on the NTAC, because I am the liaison to that committee as it exists currently, I think it is absolutely important that the functions of the NTAC be performed, because as the membership have pointed out, they do not have a vote in our town elections. That said, one of the reasons that I support the streamlining as written here is because I want the membership of that group as a subcommittee to be able to give their input not only on land use decisions that are just in the NTAA, but to be able to give input on Carrboro's land use decisions as a whole, including the NTAA. Historically, the fact that these two groups have been separate and have been allocated their separate tasks has meant sort of creating an artificial divide in how we think about land use as being NTAA versus rest of Carrboro. And it's my hope that by streamlining in this way, that the membership of the NTAAC subcommittee can contribute to all of Carrboro's land use decisions. That's one of the reasons that I'm supporting that. That said, as we go through this, I would love to hear back from any members of the NTAA subcommittee about how that's working for them, to see if we need to revisit this decision. So thank you so much for listening to me on that. Thank you. I yield back, Madam Mayor.
If I could just briefly piggyback on that too, because I wanted this, I didn't have the chance to address that when we were talking about the climate action part of the discussion. One of the things that I often try to stress to folks when we're talking about various means of public input is that sometimes the more official feeling options are, practically speaking, sort of red herrings, which is to say that we take our advisory boards and the official advisory boards and their designated remits, we take them really seriously. But it is not, a designated board is not necessarily, they're equally advisory, and we sometimes contradict planning or, almost all boards at different times. We weigh them really heavily, but that is to say that the existence of a single board for the northern area, northern transition area, isn't meaningfully speaking a different kind of feedback than we will get from the subcommittee. And so I offer that in addition to, and I recognize that, and so I think the streamlining reflects that ultimately, is that we're sort of proportionalizing this, and to underscore that hopefully we get more input in this way from the people who are sitting in the seats currently held by the Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee. And I think that that's true. I think that perspective will be woven into more decisions, as Councilmember Frey is indicating. And I just always want to stress, this comes up with our 3-minute public comment period or any means of talking to us, that they are not, your voice does not weigh less under this coming organization. If logistically it's not working well for your members and it's the conversations in the planning board aren't fruitfully surfacing your concerns, if you find that they're not getting to us, we want to hear that. But we believe that they will get to us more often. And also, I always want to take these opportunities to underscore that, like texting us in line at Weaver Street Market, email, calls, all of those are weighed equally. I say text, my phone number's on the site. I think most of us are. We're accessible in those ways, equally officially. And so often I think these official means of providing feedback tend to sometimes create these moments of friction we're having where I think residents feel like we're trying not to hear them, when in fact, I think it's easier for us to hear you than maybe it seems because of the existence of this standing committee. So all to say, we hear you very well, and I don't mean to talk at length. I think Councilmember Frey, as usual, made the point more succinctly and clearly. But I just we take it really seriously. And I think what the conversation here that transpired tonight may not reflect that seriousness, I think, because we had a breach in discussion protocol that I would like to have gotten to this point. I don't think that language serves us necessarily in your voice being valued, but I don't think the lack of emotion or anything that you've seen here tonight should indicate should indicate anything less than our shared serious value of your input. So thank you very much for it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem now. Any other comments or questions? As Ms. Moon is still standing. I think if you could go back to the draft LUO ordinance, page 5 of 17, that's what I have. Attachment G. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So we are streamlining with some, I look at this and I understand, again, the concern as we have the Appearance Commission and the Northern Transition Area Advisory Commission to join with the Planning Board, and the same for the Transportation, Mobility, and Greenways Advisory Commission. And so if you could just kind of say, primarily for the public and probably for me as well, maybe others, so when there is this consolidation, so that means the planning board is the lead here as we think about consolidating. And I guess the current chair of the planning board would be the lead for the planning board, and also the Transportation, Mobility, and Greenways Advisory Board. And once we make the decision about the consolidation, if it is tonight, I think Mayor Pro Tem now mentioned, as well as Councilmember Frey, we do want to hear from commission members about how things are going, if there are problems with communication or just being able to, kind of work together, feel a part of the group during this consolidation process. So my question to you, Ms. Moon, is how is it structured once the proposed consolidation goes forth?
So a similar question came up at joint review, and I think the point of the question was, would you start from scratch and begin appointments afresh? And I'm not 100%, but my belief is that there are sufficient vacancies that these mergers can occur without any loss of current memberships. And you would then begin to appoint new people, maybe to fill in some of these expertise gaps that you have. And that would include the Planning Board, Appearance Commission, certainly. And I believe for the TAB and the Greenways Commission, I believe that would be the case also, and certainly with the Climate and EAB. With regard to who runs the meeting, I think that's a great question. Considering the fact that we would typically do officer elections in February, that seems like a nice meeting or two to kind of get to know everyone and see if that leadership kind of becomes clear, and perhaps existing chairs for those boards that currently have a quorum could begin, and then they could discuss that in just a few months.
Okay. Yeah, that's big leadership with the Planning Board, Appearance Commission, and NTAC. I think that was my only question as I began to look at this. I think that was it for me. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, I will have a motion related to this point, but outside of after our public hearing. It's not related to our review here.
Okay. So it doesn't look like there are any further questions from council members. You may take your seat, Ms. Moon. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We see the procedural notes before us. With the resolution of consistency, attachment A, the consideration of the draft ordinance, B, and the consideration of town code amendment 4C. Unless there's more discussion. Councilman Posada.
Madam Mayor, just so that I understand, would we need to do 3 separate motions, or could one encompass the 3 attachments?
I think I would want 3 separate motions for attachment A, then B, then C.
Very well, in that case, I move attachment A.
With the finding that we find it consistent
Yes.
and reasonable.
So
and
I
Yes.
think you have to read through each
Yeah,
one
let
of
me
those.
pull it up. Give me 1 second. I forgot about that part.
Section 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Madam Mayor, move the approval of attachment A in section 1 saying is consistent with the comprehensive plan. In section 2, there I am. Statement whether, on section 2 saying it is reasonable and action is reasonable and in the public benefit, and section 3 that we approve the action within this resolution.
All right, so a motion on the floor by Councilmember Posada. Could I get a second for attachment
Seconded.
A? Thank you, Councilmember Frey. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Mayor, I move attachment B, consolidation of draft ordinance. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I need to read it here, but I don't think so.
Attachment B will be amending the Carrboro Land Use Ordinance relating to advisory boards and amendments. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Frey. No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we are at attachment C.
Madam Mayor, I move attachment C, consideration of town code amendments.
I second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And that is it for that item. Did you have something, Councilmember Frey?
We can come to it at the end if you like. I don't think we need to hold everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Town Manager Tony, we are now at the general agenda. Could you introduce the item, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. There's only one general agenda item. It's an information item in reference to the Green Track, Community Engagement, Master Plan, and the next steps. Our Planning Director, Trish McGuire, will lead off the presentation and introduce the consultants for this item.
Thank you very much, Manager Tony. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
It's very nice to join you this evening.
Oh, sorry.
On behalf of the staff of Carrboro, who have been working on the Green Tract for a while, and specifically Marty Roop and Duncan Dodson, who are our leads and attend meetings more than once a week, often with our partners in the town of Chapel Hill and Orange County. Of course, our community partners with Rogers Viewbanks Neighborhood Association and others, and then the consultant teams. Really proud to be here to speak with you briefly this evening and just start off our presentation on this project. The consultant teams, as you heard, are going to make some mega presentations. We have two groups briefly. They'll talk about the community engagement and then the master plan itself, and then Marty is going to wrap it up at the end. I do want to just say that we did use the Orange County procurement process to engage with Gensler and VHB to handle community engagement for this project, and I hope you'll be interested in the details they share with you this evening. And Jessica Pearson and Jordan Powell, Gensler, Jessica Pearson, and VHB, Jordan Powell, are going to speak for a few minutes, and they're going to be followed up by Dan Jewell, who with Wendy Ramsden are here from Thomas and Hutton, and they did handle the preparation of our community-created master plan. So finally, I think you've seen in the agenda items most recently provided to you that the county has approved engagement with the Development Finance Initiative at UNC to proceed with a financial feasibility analysis of this master plan, and working towards next steps ultimately to engage with a development partner for bringing it to life. The other step that really is actively underway right now is the beginnings of the zoning approval process, which will occur in the town of Chapel Hill under Chapel Hill's zoning authority in their extraterritorial jurisdiction. And our staff teams at all three local governments are working together to identify those ordinance provisions that we have that reflect community values for the three owner partners, and seeing how to incorporate those into an application for a development agreement with the town of Chapel Hill. Our current plan is for that development agreement hopefully to be through the approval process in about a year. So with that, I'm going to ask Jessica and Jordan to come up here and share some information with you. Oh, one more, well, I can say this while they're coming up. You guys are the third in the lineup for approval of the master plan. We do have a resolution in the packet. Marty will speak to that when he wraps the slides up at the end. Thanks very much.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the public, staff. I'm Jessica Pearson, as I was introduced, with Gensler, located in Raleigh. And with me is my friend and colleague, Jordan Powell with VHB. We began all of our community engagement efforts grounded in the approved conceptual land use plan that was adopted in November of 2021. As part of the community engagement process, we met on a monthly basis with an engagement team that was made up of the following people, consistent with an interlocal agreement between Orange County, the town of Chapel Hill, and the town of Carrboro. And the makeup of that committee was members of the three jurisdictions, people who live and represent the Rogers Eubanks Neighborhood Association, two of whom you've heard from already tonight, Affordable Housing Partners, and a representative from the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. And this team was instrumental in helping guide us through the development of our outreach strategy. The purpose of the community engagement was to collect and document a collective vision for the Green Track Master Plan. And through our efforts, we coordinated alongside our friends at Thomas & Hutton to develop a master plan, a conceptual master plan that was consistent with the community's vision. And then we hosted workshops not only to collect the vision, but also to share back progress and get feedback on what, the conceptual master plan as it was being developed. And these are some images from those workshops. At the beginning of the process, we developed goals for the engagement, and we also came up with strategies for how we were going to achieve those goals. This slide is an infographic outlining the types of engagement activities that we created and used as part of the process. There were 11 stakeholder interviews, over 150 participants in our workshops. We hosted one focus group with Phoenix Place, published 7 monthly newsletters, which we understand those newsletters will continue as the project progresses, and then also those 10 engagement team meetings. The purpose of the stakeholder interviews was, it was an opportunity for our team to understand the history, stories, and challenges and opportunities related to the development and the master plan project. As I mentioned, we created content for and hosted and facilitated 3 community workshops, one in April, one in June, and then one in September. And this was how we were able to connect with the residents and get their perspectives and share feedback on the master plan progress. There was one focus group held with Phoenix Place residents to discuss green tract stories, community development, connectivity and open space and housing, and this session helped increase attendance by people who live in Phoenix Place at the second workshop to make their voices heard. This slide demonstrates the various methods we used to promote the workshops. There were full-size banners, yard signs, multilingual flyers advertising the dates and times and location of the workshop, a postcard campaign targeted to people living in and around the Green Tract, and then, of course, our monthly newsletters. And now Jordan's going to take you through the guiding principles.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and all those gathered here. I'm not generally known for my brevity, so I will try my best here. I'm going to talk a bit about the process for our community engagement. I think I'll start by saying that we on our side really commend the town of Carrboro and the other owners for creating a process that really can center equitable engagement alongside this master planning process. And so here's a little bit of how we delivered that. So from all of those inputs that Jessica just outlined, that's the sort of what we've heard. That also includes what we've read and all of the rich and robust history from the community. We developed those into some overarching insights and ultimately culled those down into 8 guiding principles, which are listed on your screen and in your packets here. And we use these, as the next team will show, to sort of guide our process throughout to ensure that the master plan as delivered was grounded in these principles that were founded in equitable engagement strategies. And so how these were applied kind of shows our loose timeline for how we applied these. We had our initial insights after our first workshop, incorporated those with the master plan team into a couple different options for folks to reflect on and react to. Then some synthesis went into the final workshop, which presented the plan that Dan and company will show. And so I could talk at length about this process. We're very proud about the engagement process that we've delivered here, that y'all have created. Really, I hope you heard from some of the residents that we did our best in a 10-month period to create a process that was founded in trust building and transparency, and I think we've delivered that. And if you want to just read so much more about our process and our methodology and outcomes and deliverables, that's included in a community engagements insights report, which is available publicly. And here's Dan.
Thank you, George. Jessica. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dan Jewell. I'm the Regional Director of the Durham office in Thomaston-Hutton. And of course, with me this evening is one of our other landscape architects, Wendy Ramsden. This is our team. This map is important because it shows the context of the area, not only where we sit relative to Carrboro and Chapel Hill. I think most of you know that, but just as a refresher, Rogers Road, Eubanks Road up here, Homestead Road down here. These are the railroad tracks, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is way over here. The Church of the Advocate is down in the corner. We had a speaker on that in just a second. But just in general, though, if you look at this map, if you look at the scale of the area that will be developed as part of the greater tract, it's very much in keeping with the scale of a lot of the surrounding neighborhoods, Vineyard Crossing and Northwoods, Tally Ho Trail, the Highlands, things like that. But what's really important is that with this community, we're able to get many more housing opportunities than those old suburban neighborhoods were developed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Not only the number of houses and other uses we can create, but also the types that we can put there. And we think this is a wonderful opportunity, and we've enjoyed being able to work on it. What I'd like to go over fairly quickly, though, is the layout that ended up with all this great community input over the last several months. Again, just for reference, Purefoy Road would be on this side. These are the railroad tracks. We have not even shown all of the preserve around the property, but you can see what we did here, and this is the result of all the workshops. Not only that, but the 2 concept plans that we presented at workshop number 2. We combined those ideas that we heard from the residents who were there and different ideas that came in. So just in general, you can see how we've graduated the density. The lighter yellow would be lower density. That would be single-family homes, 2-family homes, things of that nature. The medium orange areas, Those would be a middle density. Those would be townhouses, row houses, things of that nature. And then the orange blocks, those would be multifamily. Potentially, some of them might have ground floor non-residential uses, opportunity for co-working, shops, community spaces, things of that nature. And also, if you notice these small brown squares, those are opportunities for other small non-residential spaces, be that a daycare, a makerspace, a place for local startup businesses to happen, things of that nature. But the idea is to create a village center, which would also be complementary to Phoenix and the Rogers Road neighborhood over there. Hopefully, those folks very much want to be part of this, and this would be additive to that as an amenity. The blue, as you can imagine, those would be the stormwater ponds, but we see those as more than just a place to manage stormwater. We think there's an opportunity to make those amenities with trails around them, maybe little overlooks, picnic areas, things of that nature. And one of the big organizing principles of this is this village green in the center, this long open space that can have lots of different purposes. We'll talk about that in a minute, but most importantly, it really sets up a nice center for the community, not unlike Southern Village, because that's always used as an example of that. Some of the other things we heard at the second workshop were, let's go ahead and create as much of a buffer as possible between this neighborhood and the Phoenix neighborhood. Let's go ahead and put in more potential street connections. So the first plan showed a connection to Purefoy Road, and then another connection down to Marin Road, which would get you out to Homestead. But folks said, even though we may not be able to do it right away, let's go ahead and start thinking about more connections to the north, maybe along the railroad tracks, going up into county-owned property here, and potentially a connection also to Lizzie Lane where it goes out. So the idea would be the traffic that we do have, let's disperse that. And not only disperse it from a standpoint of cars, but let's make sure that we have good pedestrian connections along all of those things. The next couple of slides sort of break out what you've seen there into different layers so they're easier to understand. The most important thing that we heard time and time again, along with creating all these housing opportunities, is let's really think hard about the open space, and it becomes an integral part, not only the outside of the developed area with all the preserved area, but inwardly as well. So as I mentioned, the stormwater ponds could be done as an amenities. We have several areas within where there was good support for creating orchards and parks of that nature, just to, not only for beauty, but to be able to grow food, learn, that sort of thing. We actually have provided trail access to the preserve up in this area, so there would be some public parking, so it would make it easier for folks to get into the trail system. Little pocket parks here and there between some of the different residential neighborhoods. Community gardens. There was a lot of interest in providing spaces for community gardens, which we've done as well. Active recreation areas where somebody could throw the frisbee, run with the dog, frisbee golf, whatever, nothing set in stone, but those are the ideas that came up with. And also a community playground area, and there was a strong desire to locate that playground in a way that it was also just as close and accessible to the existing neighborhood off of Phoenix and Edgar and Purefoy. So we have done that. The vehicular connections, a couple of the strong things that we heard come out of the workshops were, let's not have a continuous road that just goes all the way through from Purefoy back out to Marin and Homestead Road. Let's make it as circuitous as possible. So, we're slowing cars down or maybe discouraging people from using shortcuts. One of the other things we've done is many of these roads and systems are purposely designed so a transit bus can come in and work its way out in any direction without having to turn around or go into a dead end or anything like that. We think it's extremely important that this be designed in such a way that we, as much as possible, discourage vehicular use and encourage non-vehicular use. And also, finally, most of the streets where they end actually terminate in a view of green space. So you're not looking into buildings or other streets or that sort of thing. It really, I think, is going to open up the view. The street sections on this plan and this map is here. We wanted to highlight that these are not going to be big roads in this neighborhood. We want to have a lot of roads that are smaller scale. We're not going to be doing a Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. We're going to be doing narrow, either two-way roads. We've got some one-way roads. We'll put parking on them where we can, not only to reduce having to put in big parking fields around the neighborhood, much more friendly to have parking on the street, but that's another way to slow traffic down by doing that, especially with this on-street parking. Pedestrian connections and a pedestrian network were even more important than our vehicular network. So you can see we have a hierarchy. The orange represents sidewalks internal to the developed area. All the streets would be lined with sidewalks on both sides. Plenty of opportunities for not only sidewalks, but wide sidewalks and plazas that could be programmed for events, pop-up uses, food truck rodeos, fairs, festivals, you name it, in the village center. And we also take the liberty to just schematically show the opportunity to put a great trail system in through the preserve and in the neighborhood to make it feel seamless. And these could be a hierarchy of trails, everything from paved to gravel to even nature trails in some areas, depending on what the desire is. And I'd like to sort of go over this one, not really in a lot of detail, but just these again highlight the relative intensity of the land uses. So you can see we have the lower density land uses up against the existing neighborhoods, which we heard was very important, along with those buffers. The medium intensity uses, sort of as you get around a little bit closer to the edges. And then in the middle, we have the higher density residential and non-residential uses, and this brown area does not represent a building, but it represents an area where there could be commercial spaces, civic spaces, things of that nature, other than residential, both through pop-up areas and those small buildings that I talked about a minute ago. And I will leave with this slide because all this discussion of the things that could be programmed and done within the new neighborhood, we felt it was critically important, and the neighbors felt it was critically important, that we also think about green space and pedestrian connectivity through Lizzie Lane, Edgar Street, Purefoy, as you get back out to Rogers Road. So certainly sidewalks, streetscape treatments, street trees, again, connecting the existing park here, public space at the corner of Edgar and Lizzie. We see this all as a string of pearls that works all the way through the neighborhood and ends up at the historic home site, which also the neighborhood and we thought was very important to preserve and celebrate and things of that nature. And it also gives us an opportunity to create some sort of entrance celebration feature out on Rogers Road, so folks that know that you're entering a special place and you're entering a new place. So that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but we had a lot of fun doing this and we really appreciated that opportunity. I think with that, I might hand it over to Marty, and then he's going to make a few closing remarks on this and then maybe move into questions. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jewell.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Marty.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for all the information shared so far. I only have a couple of slides. I won't be very long-winded here. Just exciting to be here tonight. An important juncture in the whole project, and excited to be here. This slide just kind of represents kind of where we are and where we're going, very broadly speaking. The master plan, as Dan just provided some details about, shows the connectivity, general use types, general location of uses, et cetera. We've created this pod approach where we can have we can refine the number of units and the amounts of densities kind of pod by pod as this moves forward. And as we do move forward into what's identified here as the future phases, everything will start to get much more specific. We'll really start to refine the details, and in our work with the DFI folks, we will eventually, hopefully, bring forward, identify a development partner and bring forward a real-life plan to bring all this to life. Conceptual transit stops have been shown at this point, greenways. Dan just showed the conceptual trails through the preserve and all of that. All of that will get refined and be much more real as we move forward here. We'll be doing a traffic impact analysis, all sorts of things that you commonly see associated with an actual development plan. So that's where we're going, and we have chosen, by way of Chapel Hill being the entitling regulatory party here, to go the development agreement route. Part of the reason for that is development agreement, once it has actually been approved in Chapel Hill, has a 20-year vesting period. There's no expectation that all this is going to happen in a matter of a year or two. We all kind of moving forward knowing it's a long-term project and will unfold over a number of years. With that, this slide just kind of, again, graphically shows where we are. We envision continuing community engagement and communication throughout, and that is what you're seeing at the top here. Where we are tonight, October 24, the conceptual master plan. This consultant support is needed as we start working with the DFI folks to actually check what this is going to actually look like as we move forward. We have engaged Thomas and Hutton, or kept them on the team, so to speak, to refine the master plan. Inevitably, there will need to be some refinement done to the plan. So that's what the consultant support as needed is identifying there. You've already heard a little bit about DFI, so with that, I'll just note, as Trish did earlier, that we are also starting in earnest the Chapel Hill zoning approval process. We are meeting, Trish did mention this as well, multiple times a week right now. The staff from Chapel Hill, Carrboro, and Orange County, we have kind of a core group, and we're meeting with technical staff from stormwater, fire department, et cetera, on and on. Lots and lots of meetings to identify what the standards will be as we refine this plan and make it a real approvable plan. And with that, our request tonight is that you receive the reports from the consultant teams and the staff, and approve the resolution in attachment A. Both Orange County and Chapel Hill have already approved their respective resolutions, so we're hoping you'll do the same tonight. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, or along with the consultant teams and Trish.
All right, thank you so much, Marty.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions, council members? I presume there is or isn't. Councilmember Frey.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Not actually a question, just a quick comment, which is I am especially pleased by by how thoughtful the transportation planning for this master plan has been, in that it is stepping away from some of the excesses of past cul-de-sac style structure. It is connected in all directions so that we're spreading traffic out, not funneling it through one neighborhood. And in particular, I note that the cross sections of the roads are actually narrower than what Carrboro's current ordinance might establish for a road of similar traffic, which is great because it's going to slow cars down and improve pedestrian and bike safety and driver safety as well. So really happy to see that. This looks like it's been a lovely process, and I was so glad to hear from the representatives of RENA who are with us tonight about how that process has gone for you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Frey. Anyone else?
Just very briefly, would like to echo, thank you to our staff, to the consultants, to the residents who engaged here. I hope that this looks a lot more like a lot more of where we're going.
Yep.
I think this does a lot of what we talk about. My very small personal thing, as we fill out the particular land uses, I would encourage some of that business space to think about just a little bit of maybe like grocery. It would be really great to make this as, you almost don't have to leave as it is. And if you really didn't have to, then it would be just about perfect from just one man's perspective. I really congratulate everybody who participated here, and particularly the representatives from Marina for really steering us to somewhere we're proud to get.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Now, any other comments or questions from the council? Okay, Councilman Posada. So I I have I think question, comment from Ms. Quisenberry. She did mention earlier concerns about ingress, egress, tree buffers, and also changing property tax values. And I also read this same thing about property tax values and the unintended consequences section of a race equity pocket questions. And I also appreciate on one of the slides, I saw a reference to St. Paul Village. And actually I don't know how far that project is out, but I mean, I would figure that might be potentially a stressor on infrastructure, in that area as we move forward with the green track. And so if we could kind of get some type of response about ingress, egress, tree buffers, and that potentially property tax values, because those were some concerns I heard earlier during public comment. Just whatever you're able to say right now.
Sure, I'll start by saying we have known and will move forward accordingly all along that Purefoy cannot be the only means to get in and out of the green track. Marin Road has been identified as the kind of next opportunity, or perhaps the easiest opportunity to have a second way in and out of the property, and that does involve a fairly large amount of infrastructure to get the road up to from where Marin ends now up to where the development would actually take place within the green track. But it is reasonably doable. Other points of access, as you noted, are identified for future connections if and when the railroad is not in use anymore. We've identified the possibility that we might connect in that to the east, to the Weaver Dairy area. That would be sometime in the future, and very much so an unknown. So other points to the north have also been identified by way of the master plan, and we will consider all options as we move forward. But we do know and have no intention of making Purefoy the only connection. It just can't be. I'm sorry, the second matter there was something between that and the tax matter?
Tree buffers.
Tree buffer. Yes, as a matter of fact, we met on Zoom earlier today with the Phoenix Place, a few folks from Phoenix Place again, and did hear, Ms. I'm not going to get your name right, but reiteration of what you've heard tonight about potentially increasing the tree buffer, enhancing what is shown on the master plan at this point. And again, as we move this forward and make it even more real than it is tonight, we can certainly consider additional buffering and that kind of thing. Regarding the taxes, I know that Perdita Holtz from Orange County Planning staff has been in touch to kind of start a conversation with the tax folks up in the county, but I don't really have any information to report on that tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Marty, and I'm really excited about this. I love the way that it has come together and the way community is centered in the process. So I think it's fantastic, and just looking forward to more.
Good.
Questions or comments? Jason? Councilmember Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, one, I am very interested in hearing that report when it comes down to the taxes part. I'm very interested in seeing how that's going to impact folks around the area. But I, too, am very excited about the fact that we can increase stock in Carrboro. We know that affordable housing is extremely important, and it's one of the work that like all of us on this dais have been wanting to get done. So I very appreciate everyone who's been involved in this, from the staff and the consultants to folks in the community. As we have seen, it's been a long time coming already, and a lot of work has already put in, but we're only maybe halfway through, not even. So I'm excited to see it move forward and come into reality. On that, the only thing, if whenever appropriate, Madam Mayor, I would like to move the item.
Okay. So you're want to move attachment A, which is a resolution approving the master plan for
Correct.
107-acre portion of the green tract in joint ownership.
Seconded.
Thank you. No further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone, and the guy in the back waving his hands in the orange shirt. Thank you again. This is good. We are at the end of our agenda.
Madam Mayor, is there a moment here for matters from council? Okay, thank you. I have a quick question related to the discussion we had during the public hearing about the text amendments. I have been thinking through Ms. Moon's comments about the updates to sort of the way that terms are structured. I know that we're already preparing to enter into a contract to overhaul our land use ordinance, but having observed the effects on the advisory boards of the current structure, I think we might need to update that a little sooner than 18 months from now. So I would like to make a motion that we request staff to come back to us with a further update to the land use ordinance to also address that concern about the terms and appointment times of the various advisory boards. I feel that can happen separately from the matter that we already approved.
Any questions or discussions about that? Second? Good.
Happy to second.
All right. It has been, Mr. Joyner, did you capture that? Thank you.
Did you put a timeline on it?
I did not put a timeline on it, but I would be happy to hear a friendly amendment if you have got a suggested timeline.
Yeah. Madam Manager, what would be an appropriate amount of time to put on this?
This would reside in the clerk's office to manage, I would say by the spring, before I would say spring, March. How about we say March 2025?
Mr. Joyner, is that acceptable to you?
Yes.
I would like to amend your motion to add a timeline to that. This report comes in March of 2025.
Thank you. I accept your amendment.
Okay. Mr. Joyner, could you read that motion back, please? Clarity, make sure we have everything.
It is for staff update of the structure of the advisory boards to come back by March of 2025.
Mr. Joyner, just to clarify, specifically to bring us a further land use ordinance text amendment that would resolve our concerns about the term length and staggering of the advisory boards.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just make one statement?
Go
I just wanted to make one observation that the advisory committees that fall under the planning department are subject to the land use ordinance. Any changes would have to come back as a legislative public hearing, text amendment. There are no other advisory committees that fall under that. It was proposed that these committees, not planning and not the Board of Adjustment, but any other advisory committee, all fall within one swoop of order, timeframes, appointments, surety of diversity, one strategy and guidelines for all advisory committees, and then that way, any changes wouldn't have to be an amendment to a land use ordinance. So it's just a thought just to consider. And I've talked a little bit to planning and the clerk's office about this. I think it will help process because it's advisory in nature, and ultimately you all make the decisions around any recommendations that come out of the committee. So just for food for thought to consider in the future. It would have to be a change to the town code. We moved forward this time only because it had been advertised and you would need to do the full land use ordinance. So just something to consider as we're looking at our land use ordinance rewrite, and is it necessary to have advisory committees fall within that?
Thank you so much. I will
thank
just adjust to say that I'm directing this to whichever group of staff is appropriate to review that, to bring it back to us in whatever format's appropriate to make that change, whether that be via the land use ordinance or via town code, or both.
Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, and that's why I was hesitant, because it spoke to the land use ordinance, and that is a little bit out of my purview, but we will glad.
I appreciate that
Yes,
update. Thank you.
We will gladly get together and make those adjustments
Okay.
where needed. Thank you.
Motion is clear, what we're voting on, and we have a friendly amendment, second.
Yes.
Okay. Any more comments or concerns? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.